Okay, teacher, hello. This is the guide number 4. So in this case, we had a lot of heroes that wasn't in our hands to be able to solve, but the code is in the guide. In this case, uh, I'm going to talk to you about the application JSP using Derby to create a DOM. The creation of the database and the tables with Derby than before we created a database named Almacen. And first, we created the Java database, the JavaDB database, Almacen. We created the name and the username and the password. So in this case, the database name was Almacen, the username was root, and the password was Almacen 2009. And finally, we created the table root provider, and we choose an ID provider, integer, not null primary key, and a name varchar with 5 key number. We created, in this case, in the Apache Tomcat database with this app, with this server app, because because Glassfish had a lot of errors that wasn't able to solve. So we created the pool with connections. We created the resource JDBC, and in the services, we started the Apache Tomcat server. After we started the server, we were able to see the console of this application. So in this case, we don't have more information. But if we were using Glassfish, so I'm going to show you what happens if I use the server. I'm going to choose the domain one, and I'm going to stop Apache Tomcat server. I'm going to wait what happens with Glassfish server. So we have here the resources and the application, the web services, but I'm going to show you the admin console that we were working in the guide. So in the guide, we went to JDBC, where we had the pool of connection JDBC. And here, I was able to find the pool of connection JDBC, creating a new pool. Mm, so here I set new, and I select Almacen DBP OOL, and I choose here JavaX dot SQL data source. Here JDB, and I enable this thing. So you are not watching here, but I'm going to show you the other window that in this case I'm working. So here, as you can see, we have the configuration of JDBC connection pool. Of this in this case, I created a new JDBC connection pool, the second of two steps. And here we have the information that we were able to find in the guide. So we went down to the additional properties, and I was able to find the select and the name, and to add properties or delete properties that in this case we were able to find. So in this case, I was able to find different things in this place. So as you can see, here I created the pool name, the resource type, and the database driver vendor that was JavaDB. And we were able here to delete everything, but user we were going to wait and to don't delete database name, password that is in the end, and server name. Now we delete the other properties. So here we have the user database name, server name, and password. And the user, for example, we let app in the database almacén, and the password almacén 2014. And here we set finish. And here we can find the different pool names and their resources. So here now we are going to set resources of JDBC that in this case are here, and we can find here a new pass JDBC resource that in this case we are going to create the JNDE JDBC slash almacén DB. So here we choose almacén DB pool and we set OK. So in this case we have a new JNDE name, and after that we created the new project that was in this case the other page you can see. So here you can see that the application is now with a Glassfish server configuration, and we created the provider info that is here in web apps, and here we can find the code about the information of the provider of the person that send or sell the product. In this case, ID provider name and provider ID provider dot name, and we have that input that are formed by type, name, and value. Finally, we have different generators that are necessary using with the annotation of generate value with the strategy. And here also we have the source packages that are formed by almacén controller and that have a provider servlet. And here we have the different imports that in this case JavaX give it as a problem that we weren't able to solve, but it was a problem of a configuration that the servlet dot in this case in the services. So in project dependencies we find it persistence, that it was the problem that didn't let us be able to run the program. So we had also provider DAO that in this case was almacén DAO that had a lot of constructors setter and getter that was formed by that part of the code. Finally, we have a provider DAO local that also have another provider, edit provider, delete provider, that in this case is about all the CRUD of the provider in this case. So here we had also getter and setters of ID provider and name. That in this case the ID of the provider is an integer and the name is a string. And about the configuration, we also created in persistence a persistence unit that was the type of the file of our database. And also we created here in the Apache a data source that was named in the JNDE JavaDB almacén database. And after we created the getter and setters, we were able to open the application. That in this case, as you can see, I'm going to show you as it would have been if you were able to see the application. So I'm going to share you here how the application would be if it would be okay. So I'm going to show you the other window that in this case it is, and what I wanted to show you. It would be the information of the provider, the ID of the provider, that in this case is 55, the name that is Frigo Tanques, and it showed us the possibility of add, edit, delete, and search the different information about the provider in this case that we created, and it had an ID, a name, that in this case we had, for example, the ID 218855, and the names Frigo Nickel Coal Machines, PFE, and Frigo Tanques. And that's all. Thank you, teacher.